Good morning, everybody. It's Jeff Goldberg for the Sales Pro Network. It is Friday, March 6th. Oh my goodness, we're already into the third month of the year. I'll say it again, as I will in front of every episode. If you are not, let's see, 2/12, 1/6 of the way to your goal right now, it's time to get busy. The time to get busy is definitely not October, November, which is when I get a lot of calls from panicked people because they're not going to hit their quota. Now is the time to take action because there's still plenty of time to pull your year out, but you got to get busy now. And if you have not joined us before, I'm a sales coach and trainer. I work with individuals and organizations to help them increase their sales. And if you have joined us before, you know that every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, I either do a live training or a live interview with somebody who can add value to the profession of sales. And today is no exception. Today's guest was the Middle Tennessee president of Capstar Bank and the founder of Bizix LLC. He's had a 4-decade career. That's almost as long as mine. 4-decade career around one central mission, and that is helping people reach higher levels of performance by aligning with the principles that govern success. Today's guest is Chip Higgins. Please welcome him. Good morning, Chip.
Good morning, Jeff. Thank you for having me on. I've been so excited to join you today.
I'm excited to speak with you. Chip, before I get to the 1,000,001 questions I have for you, could you maybe give us the 1 to 2 minute version of your background?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a banking town. It's kind of an odd thing to desire banking for a career. I think some people fall into it, but I grew up in Winston-Salem, which was the headquarters and where Wachovia was founded. So I kind of became interested in banking as just kind of a career and lifestyle, and pursued it here in Nashville. 1984, I joined a training program here, and it was every bit what I expected. I mean, it's a combination of economics and business, but also, human relationships and community connection. And so it's been a wonderful ride. The banking industry has certainly taken a lot of turns over that time period and consolidated beyond kind of anybody's wildest dreams. Back in 1984, I think we're down to about 4,000 banks now. It's about a 75% reduction. But along the way, I dealt almost exclusively with owner-managed businesses, privately held companies. And, I consistently heard this desire for momentum. And, I guess in my late innings of my career, I decided to dedicate some time to write a book about it. And so my book, The Bizix Way, Powering Your Small Business to Maximum Momentum, is really an effort to help people build and sustain momentum in their businesses. And the easiest way to think about that is, hey, guess what? There's a universal principle of momentum. Our buddy, Mr. Newton, had some good ideas around that. And, we have a really solid formula to attach that to of mass times velocity. And that's what I do now. I speak and coach, and I've got different platforms where I really try to help people understand it, because it seemed like it was very much a buzzword to a lot of people. But I kept thinking, the one formula I remember from high school physics was probably momentum, because it only had 2 variables. So if we could remember those 2 things, we ought to have a good chance of doing it in business.
Gotcha. I've worked with a ton of banks as a sales trainer, and I love working with banks because they're a very receptive audience. One of the challenges that I found banks have is they have a struggle to differentiate, because everybody offers savings, everybody offers checking, everybody offers insurance, and all the same thing. So what are your suggestions for banks, especially, actually anybody in any industry, but especially banks? How do you differentiate when what you offer is pretty much the same as everybody else?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I came to the realization that, at least in banking, I don't know every industry, but, I think the way we deliver all those commodities is the most critical thing. And, I'm not talking about logistics. I mean, I'm talking about, people that care, people that understand exactly how those products are going to help. What are the downsides? What are the upsides? What are the risks? And they come into the conversation with a really, a very open heart, and to help, and a great amount of education and knowledge about how that particular set of value propositions is going to make the world better for that person that they're in front of. And, for me, this is probably, I'm going to say mid 2000s. This is a famous article. I mean, I don't know how many times it's been downloaded, but, I latched on to a brand called You by Tom Peters, and pretty sure it's Tom Peters. But I mean, that was essentially it. Like we all have this capacity to become a brand of our own within a brand. And to the extent that, we take that personally, that we want to be the expert, that we want to be the most knowledgeable, the most energetic, helping the most people possible within the lane that's defined by the company. When we own that, I mean, that's what branding is. I mean, any business school will tell you, like, I mean, it's the premium over the commodity, and we have the ability to do that ourselves. And I think, unfortunately, in selling, to me, it's got such a, it can get such a bad reputation with people because of, people that are manipulative or unscrupulous, or they're working in organizations where they don't really have a chance to do that. It's kind of like, call me in the morning, call me at lunch, call me at the end of the day, and let's get back on the hamster wheel tomorrow. But that independence of thinking about this is who I want to be in this ecosystem is very lacking, and it drives a lot of turnover, drives a lot of unhappiness, and ultimately, I think it drives a lot of client satisfaction problems where people have been shoehorned into things that they finally just gave up and said yes, but they didn't really want it. It's
Yeah.
it's not a way to live.
I love what that you said. People that care, to me, it's often just the littlest things that can make a difference. And Citibank was a big client of mine for many years. And at one point I was invited to come to Newark, New Jersey, which you need kind of a tank to drive through there because it might not be the best of neighborhoods, but I got to this beautiful hotel and they have 500 local branch and assistant branch managers from, the tri-state New York area.
I've been in some meetings like that. Yeah.
And I love a big audience, the best. But, they had contacted me. This was just when online banking was really getting big. And they called me and they said, we want to keep people in the branches. Can you come give a talk to 500 branch and assistant branch managers about keeping people in the branches? I'm like, okay, I can do that. Not a problem. I always ask the same question. You do have money, right? Yes, I can come do that. At any rate, I came up with 5 things for them to do. And I'm sure you've experienced this too. Or at least I assume you did. I was saying what to me was the most obvious things in the world, and they're writing them down like it's the most brilliant revelation. Here's one. When the door opens to the bank, everybody look over to the door and smile. People are walking into the bank. I mean, and as 500 hands wrote down, smile. And I can see them go, smile. That's a good idea. And I'm like, oh my God, here's a better one. When you go up to the counter and there's a teller back there, you hand them your deposit slip. Your name is on your deposit slip. How about, nice to see you, Mr. Goldberg?
Yeah.
Yeah, use their name. It's the most incredible to me that it's so obvious, but it's the little things that show you care, and that is the differentiator. Because I don't know about you, Chip, but for me, I'll actually pay more for something if I feel I'm getting better service, being more appreciated.
I mean, again, that's what a brand is. I mean, that's what a brand is. And in my book, I don't have a specific chapter on selling. I probably should have, but throughout the book, I try to recommend the books that mattered to me. People can go research or whatever. And the subject that we're on, the Daniel Pink book, To Sell is Human, is so prominent in my mind about it's for all the technology that we have. It's really about trust and human connection. I don't care what you're in. I mean, it's the same thing. Like people want to believe that you're being truthful with them, that you care about them, and what you're going to deliver to them is going to make that impact. And somehow, again, I mean, I don't want to start pointing the fingers all over the place, but I think that organizations can get over-invested in methodologies and software, and to pay for it, they drive to some of the worst selling behaviors. I mean, it's just like we don't have time to be friends. Like we put $1 million into the system, and if we don't have the return by X, and it is at odds with the human dynamic of how people behave. I don't know how many people buy on the first, especially in banking. It's like, if you can't recognize in banking that you're in for a long haul to win a relationship with somebody. But the two things are kind of at odds. And I think for any person wanting to be great at sales, it's you got to be cognizant of that environment. Like, what latitude are they giving you, and what is the culture around that? I mean, I always hope it's absolute high expectation of results and complete delegation on how you get there. And if you set the timeline and it's reasonable, people love that freedom. I mean, I think they just love it. So Anyway, I'm filibustering now. I'm sorry about
I
that.
want to talk about your book, The Bizzix Way. In your book, which is, I never thought about this, you somehow marry physics with business. What the heck does physics have to do with business? And what is physics anyways? I guess physics is business and physics. Is that right?
That's it. It's the physics of
I
business.
figured that part out. But what is it? By the way, in high school, I could not have cared less about physics. Didn't understand the thing. I got interested in it as an adult. I
say in my book, I remember physics. I was terrified. We had a very aggressive nun teaching that class. She was a sweetheart, really, but for all of us, we were terrified. So I could never do the formulas, but I always tried to remember kind of the idea behind it. And so, I just have a view of the world that I get in this conversation a lot with people about, your book is such a great metaphor. And I've just kind of, for me personally, everybody's different. I just feel like when somebody's established something as a natural law, it's a universal law, that one of the big tests is, does it apply to everything or not? It's like, and so sometimes you have to dig to find out exactly, how that works. But, again, dealing with, the companies that I dealt with were not professionally managed, C-suite representative kind of businesses. These were, the owner was the financial decision maker for the most part. And, just this idea of like, you're hearing this one thing about momentum, and then, you have this incredibly powerful, simple paradigm over here. Can you bring it together and just have that be the dominating thought? Like, if you want momentum, these are the things that you think about. So, for me, you break it down, it's about energy. First of all, the formula is mass times velocity, but if you can't recognize that underneath that is this huge need for energy, and energy can become its own buzzword, and what is energy? It's it's a vibrational field. That's what the sun is. It's atoms vibrating with each other. And so it's really about, vision, an entrepreneurial vision that you have that includes the benefit and welfare of other companies or other people, that you get so excited about what you're going to bring to the market that you just can't stand it. It's like you think about it all the time. You just can't. And then you got to figure out, what's the culture? How do I get that energy distributed to other people? And ultimately, you realize, like, you can't be the sole energy source. You've got to find energy in other people that are attached to the mission as well. So there's a big part around energy. But then I think the things that people would really recognize in the book is, velocity. That's half of the equation. Velocity is a vector. And by definition, vectors have to have a distance, a direction, and a speed. So you have to know where you're going, how fast you plan to get there, where, how far, and how fast you're going to get there. So if you think about any business, if you haven't done that, I really don't know, like, how you're going to move purposely toward this vision. It's like people want more. We expect more. We're always looking at the top line of, like, my top line is growing. But, when you get down to it, is like the people that you wanted to serve, do you have more share in that market than you had last year? And, sometimes we make bad decisions for the sake of revenue. We end up doing things that were not exactly the mission when we started, because we have bills to pay. But if you set up a framework that says, look, for me to truly have velocity in my business, I've got to know these three things. It's got to be measurable, and I've got to stay on top of it every day. As amazing as it sounds, I think in the owner managed world, like, that's not always the case. It would probably be a 50-50, other than, I want to grow 10%. Okay. In where? Who are you after? Who's that ideal customer? What are you bringing to them? And that really, ties very much into the professional selling effort, that you have people that translate that unique value to the target market, who's going to pay you the most because they were the target. It's like when you bring a product to a market that wasn't the intended market, they're going to go, yeah, but I'm not going to pay you that, but when it's all aligned, that's where you get the brand value. So that's the velocity side of it. And you can't really think about velocity without net force being a discussion, because we don't live in a vacuum. And, any physicist will tell you, like, I mean, nobody's working in this world without gravity. Let's just start with that. I mean, there's some natural thing that's pulling you down. And so, what I encourage people is just, as much as you love your product and you love your company, don't put your head in the ground. The forces that are around you impacting your trajectory. Like if it's a vector, it's a line towards somewhere. And you have economic conditions, you have hiring, the hiring market, you have technology, you have just societal shifts, like psychographic changes in people about what they want and expect, employees and clients. And like, if you're not planning in advance, like how are you going to deal with all that? I use the pinball machine, and I think we're both old enough. We spent way too much money on pinball machines. Some of the young people don't remember it, but I mean that's what business is. Like you're a little ball in a contained world that's being flapped around by all kinds of forces, and you got to be out in front of it, or it's literally like one of those things that can be too late. You can be too late if you're not anticipating things. And then I won't go over the whole book. That there's some related chapters on inertia, which is a leadership chapter, friction. It's organizational, but it's also a lot about margins and liquidity, and then leverage is like debt. But the critical chapter to me is mass. And it was the one, when I wrote the book, I met with a good friend of mine who's a legitimate physicist, Caltech trained physicist that I knew at Vanderbilt. He was kind enough to give me several hours. And this was the one that we chewed on the most is, what is mass in business? And you come down to the fact that, mass is not size. We like to think about getting big, but what mass really is density, it's weight. And as we had that conversation, there's certain things he said that totally crystallized in my mind what it meant in business. And what he said was that, 98% of the mass of any matter is in the nucleus. So, you think about that. I mean, it's like, whatever you're looking at, there are atoms in there. There's 90%, 98% of the weight of that is in a little, but it wasn't hard for me to go, well, what, let's draw up a business. I mean, what's at the nucleus of a business, and it starts with the person, character, experience, leadership ability. People can start businesses way too early. They're just not ready for it. But I also come back to things like, what is the value proposition? And, you've seen it so many times, Jeff, I'm sure. It's just like people with Me Too products that think a sales force is going to fix it. And, it's like there's nothing differentiated about what they're offering, and I often think about, I talk about Sarah Blakely from Spanx a lot in the book, and I think about obviously a superlative salesperson, and a visionary. I mean, she had a great product, but, she had an extensive sales career. And what was she doing? Selling copiers. It's like, and she was success. I mean, the fact she was successful at it tells you what kind of salesperson she was. But, there's a lot of people out there that, they don't have a true defensible distinctive, but they decide to invest a lot of money in the idea of being in business and having a different logo or having whatever. And so that to me is like, it's the person, it's the value proposition, it's the culture, it's the values. I mean, those are the things that are at the very center of it. But to the point of professional selling, there's another huge component of it, which is bonding. And you can have an element, I learned from Marcus, my friend, is like, you can have an element that looks the same, but the bonding is entirely different and the weight is different. And, the one that I point out in the book is carbon. And, pencil, lead, and diamonds are basically the same matter, but the bonding is entirely different. And so that's where we really get into the selling world. Of course, culture, bond them to the vision, mission, values. All the employees need to be together. But this professional selling function to me is about how do you create, if all things are the same, if every company in your industry was carbon per se, how can you develop mass by being the company that has the greatest bond, the greatest understanding, the greatest connection with your clients, so that you roll over the competition every time? And to me, that's what we're going back to, is just like, I don't know how connected we get on online sales. I mean, I'm sure we need it for certain economic value propositions, like you probably can't afford an in-person. But anybody that's out there selling in person and they think that's important, I mean, first of all, your energy toward the market, but you're the person that can create a more massive business in the market just by your efforts to bond them to the value proposition, bond them to you, bond them to the company, the experience of it. So I feel like I'm rambling on now. I'll kind of take a breath here, Jeff, and see if there's any follow-up on it. But, I've tried to kind of deconstruct the book and be as relevant as I can be to, your expertise in professional selling. And it's a critical factor in how people roll.
Gotcha. You mentioned bonding, and you talk about the Bizix bonding formula. Mm-hmm. And I know you have a great story about when you switched dry cleaners. And can you share that with us?
Yeah, I was just going around with my dog this morning. So, yeah. So, I mean, I think because I come out of banking where, the innovation is such a fast followership world in banking. There's a handful of massive core providers that define the technology in banking. So if you're not on it yet, I mean, you're going to get that bell and whistle, off the platform or whatever. So there's not a lot of differentiation. So it really is driven by how is the person connecting? And I feel like that's something that I had to study at great length to have any kind of breakthrough. And I think, for me, dealing with commercial accounts, coming to the realization that the most important thing to that owner is that their banker completely understands who they are, where they're headed, and what their challenges are, and can represent that within the bank. I mean, the rest of it is, and so like, how do you get to that level of advisory with them? And what I learned in that is that the most powerful thing is this 4-step process that I call the Bizix bonding formula. And it starts with listening. And we talk a lot about listening, but how many great listeners have you ever been around, where it's like they're attentive, but they're also like an emotional vacuum cleaner. They're CIA level observant of body language, of tone, of everything. Like you're really listening. And that you take the listening into really hearing the whole message, hearing anxiety or excitement or tentativeness, or sometimes unfortunately in banking, like hearing that they're lying to you. It's like sometimes people are, the back is up against the wall. It's like I don't think you're being honest with me. But hearing through a lot of stimulus is difficult, and it requires a level of engagement and questioning to make sure you really understand what's happening. And I think once you've listened well, the hearing part is some level of discernment. Then this is where it falls apart for a lot of people, is remembering. And to your point, it's like, what do people remember after a conversation? I mean, it's an intention. I mean, it's something you decide beforehand that this person is important enough to you that you want to remember it. That this is something that you want to reconnect on, that was important in their life, that either you had a connection point on it or it's super important to them. And then the final part, the payoff, the big, home run derby payoff, is that you did something about it. And that's where I find, like, to me, the best sales and relationship people I've ever seen do something about the knowledge that they have. And they send a note. They send a customized gift. They invite you to something, something that's important, like out of the blue, like you'll get tickets to the Eagles, or, whatever it is, or something for your children. Introduce them to a Tennessee Titan or whatever it is. But that action is so much more than the words, that you can tell them that you know them, because you have literally like invested yourself in the person at that point. Like there's something that is very tangible about your meaning in their life and their willingness to do things for you. So that is what I style it. Like I can remember, I can remember 2 variables. I can remember 4 steps. And my story is that, and I still love this to this day. I miss these days, because we had never done pickup dry cleaning before. Like pickup and delivery. We'd always gone to the dry cleaners or whatever. And my wife was talking to somebody, and they're like, "Hey, this is a really, this is a good firm, and they're kind of eco-friendly and everything." So we started it, and I have a little 12-pound cavapoo named Roy, and Roy would get super excited when the dry cleaner would show up to get the clothes, and it was like you hang a bag on your a hook on your front door or whatever. And he'd get all yappy, and usually he's just kind of very docile. It's just one of those scrappy do kind of moments. And so it's the same person every time. And after a while, what I noticed is when she would bring them back, or even when she picked them up, she'd leave a little dog bone for Roy. And I didn't realize it was a brand at this time. I was like, man, this is amazing, because it said like Old Roy on it or something like that. But so she would start leaving the dog biscuit for Roy, pickup and delivery. And I'm like, this is I'm honestly, I've never even had a conversation with this person. Like, she's just, this is like, she knows we have a dog. We must care about the dog. She's doing this for the dog. And we got to the point where if we put the bag on the door, Roy would come into the foyer and just sit there and stare at it, and just waiting for the payoff. And
dogs never forget where the treats are.
Oh, they don't. But I mean, that to me is like, what's involved in that? I don't know. Maybe she's got 100 dogs on the route, but somebody thought enough to go buy dog treats and do that for people, because it's a personal thing. I mean, it's a very personal thing, and that's what I just think that is part of the lost part of selling. It's like, this connection that we have is good for today. It's good for the life cycle of that customer, because there's always a connection there that is very, very powerful and personal with people. So I should have brought Roy up here. Get to meet him. I
just walked out of the room. I don't think he liked that story, because he didn't get any treats. Or that was some treats.
Yeah, but I mean,
and it is those little things that make the difference.
Yeah, let me go one further and just say, okay, well, that's a dry cleaner. And this person has a lot of autonomy. They drive around, nobody knows what they're doing, whatever. But one of the banks I worked at, to me, really kind of set the standard for differentiating banking is Pinnacle Bank. It's headquartered here in Nashville, and it was a startup bank in 2001. It's a $120 billion bank today. I'm just going to let that sit with you. Like, this is the banking industry. It's 120 billion, and they had a number one market share here in Nashville, I think, within 10 or 12 years of founding. And one of their missional things was the WOW, and they had a WOW budget, and they basically said, look, here's a pool of money. Your customers, go do it. And they would literally have people buy a Taylor Swift ticket for somebody, or deliver a meal, or somebody would come up in the drive-through and they'd have something for them. It was all autonomous. I mean, it was the bank's money, but they're trusting them to make that decision. And the energetic power in that, Jeff, of somebody having those decision rights and being a human being with somebody, like, it sounds like such a small thing, but it's so powerful, and it's huge. We bring to work. So
it's like Zappos.
Right.
If you ever dealt with Zappos, they're, first of all, they don't consider themselves a shoe company. They consider themselves a customer service company that happens to sell shoes. Right. And each customer service rep is empowered to, up to a certain amount, to just take care of issues without having to ask anybody. Right. And I have more than one example where I've dealt with them, and each time I'm literally stunned at how great they take care of people. In fact, in one case, and I'm not going to tell the whole story because it takes too long, but they replaced a pair of boots for me because they came and something was wrong with them. They were very sorry. And they didn't have the same pair of boots in stock. And the woman kept me on hold, found another company that had them, said, I'll order them from the other company and send them to you.
Yes.
And I love it. Are you kidding me? Goes, no. Right. Well, what do I do with the other pair? She goes, there was like if you're walking on the street, you step on a nail, the nail goes through your shoe. Well, it felt like there was a nail in the shoe, but I looked at the bottom, there was no nail. But I took out the insole, there was a nail that they'd probably just a bad installation or something like that. And it happens when things are manufactured. I said, what do I do? She goes, well, if you can get that nail out, take them and donate them to charity. and I'm sending you the replacement pair for you. And I'm like, why would I buy shoes anywhere else? You know, what would you ever change dry cleaners when this woman's coming in giving dog biscuit? And how much does a dog biscuit cost her? Nothing.
Yeah.
I told you before, I live at the beach, and there are ladies who sit, you know, it's a private beach, very fancy, not really, but you have to have a tag to get in there, and somebody checks your tag. And one of the women who sits there always has this huge thing of treats for dogs, and every dog, when we're walking them, they all go to see Sue, and I remember her name. If Sue ever stopped me on the street and said, something's wrong, can you help me out? Absolutely, positively, she gives my dog a treat. Now, is that the end of the world? No, but it's that little thing that makes me go, you're doing something. It's the law of reciprocity, Chip.
Yeah, and I just
tend to want to do something nice for you.
Love that law of reciprocity. And you know, to me, you think about the things that we're talking about, Jeff, they're not that hard.
No.
I mean, it's a basic thoughtfulness about other people. And like, you know, for me, like as a leader in any organization, you know, as much as I would love paying people, you know, for people to know they're in a place that they're encouraged to be great human beings and given capacity to do that. And that's a meaningful part of the job. I mean, I just think that's where you want to be. Like those people at Zappos, like I'm sure like that rep, that woman, it probably made her day to be able to be that way for you, you know?
It's just, certainly made my day.
Right. Yeah.
Definitely. And I can tell you story after story of other companies that do similar things, but not most. And one of the things I always say is, you want to be great at customer service, just give good customer service. You're already better than 98% of the companies just by giving okay customer service. And
it's
then
so
when you do go above and beyond, you know, when you really go above and beyond, it's like, I know this is a podcast. This is live, but for those who are listening to this later on a podcast, I'm holding up my headset right now. I love this headset. And again, this is a long story, which I'm going to shorten. I bought it from a company, Hello Direct. Had a problem with it years ago. After like 5 years, blah, 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 spoke to somebody. Again, long story. I don't want to go through the whole thing. But they ended up sending me a new headset at their expense, a brand new headset, when they originally said, we'll take $50 off the price of a new one. And I went a little further with them. They eventually gave me a brand new headset and sent me a prepaid packaging so I could send back the bad headset. Am I ever buying telephone from any company other than Hello Direct? And not only that, I've told the longer version of that story all over the world. I would be stunned if people haven't called that company to buy stuff just as I share that story.
The megaphone
it's just a smart thing to do in business. I want to ask you about something else, though, because you mentioned momentum before when we were talking about physics. What are the forces that drive or stall business momentum?
I would, you know, I alluded to earlier, you know, I think there's, there are a lot of things that come our way, you know, as we're charting our path toward realizing that vision. You know, there are new competitors, there's, you know, tariffs, there's, you know, there are also things that propel us. You know, it's like the unexpected, like what a boon. I can't believe this is happening. It's going to be my best year ever. But consistently, you know, when I get asked this fairly frequently, and you know, to me, it's really about energy and where the owner's energy is coming from, or where the management team's energy is coming from, and how successful they are in distributing that among anybody that's attached, you know, whether it's an employee or a partner, and that they're open to allowing people to find their own energy toward that vision. There's a principle that I learned from Marcus in the conversation. And one of the reasons I always hit on this is that I could never tell you what this speed equation is, but it has to do with speed. And there's a fundamental thing about speed, like when you go through all the calculus of it, is that speed and energy have a direct but squared relationship. So if you want to go twice as fast, you need 4 times the energy. If you want to go 3 times as fast, you need 9 times the energy. And you know, you've been around organizations. I mean, I think your own company would recognize this, that you know, there are times when it's a critical time to move. You may have an opportunity that will define you, and you have not mastered the energy equation in your company to the point that you can successfully move toward it. You know, the people are already worn out with what they're doing. You're tired. You know, that is the fundamental thing that I feel like business owners have got to stay on is, where is the energy coming from? Where are the blocks in the circuitry from a culture standpoint? How do I make this a place where people are constantly, at Pinnacle, they call it discretionary effort, but I mean, that's what we're talking about is like people are pouring their own energy into it. I mean, it's not just you. It's like, that person on the phone with the headset. There's something about their life that their ability to do that kind of work is life-giving and brings them tremendous energy in the process of doing it. And so, I find a lot is, there's a lot of sad stories of companies that start and fail. And I've seen too many of that in banking. I mean, it's very troubling to me and probably, a big motive for my book in itself. But I'd say there are plenty of companies that plateau and they're trying to figure out how to keep it going. And the energy is gone. Like they don't really have that compelling vision for the next thing. Maybe they've discovered that their leadership ability is so limited that it's all coming back on them, and they cannot find the way to translate their excitement about this to everybody that needs to execute on it. And so I come back to that one consistently as the big one. Now, all that being said, people make bad decisions. I think financial management, particularly in smaller companies, puts you under another universal law that there's no escape from, which is leverage. And if you're in a situation where you've got a pile of debt and you thought it was going to move you forward, and you have no equity in the game, it will crush you. I mean, it's that simple. I mean, it's we have to be respectful of these things and see how they appear in meta dynamics. Like friction. We talk about friction a lot in the book, and we notice it mostly in human relationships. We don't like high heat environments. We don't like where people are mad at each other and all. And yes, absolutely, I agree. But you also have to think about margins, and like if you believe like when things rub together, there's going to be high heat that's going to set your house on fire. Think about the fact that you have no margin in your product and you continue to try to sell it. I mean, it's high heat. I mean, there's no profit in it. And so these are things that are physical principles that actually appear in business. Liquidity, like, if you had bad margins and you had $1 million of cash in the bank, like you wouldn't have high heat. Like it's like, synthetic motor oil running through the business. Like it's always going to be lubricated, but eventually you're going to have to fix the margin problem. So there are other things, but I would say for the most part, I've seen companies run out of energy way before they run out of money. And it's like the vision was too big. They weren't prepared for the challenges of running a business, all the different hats to wear. It sounded exciting when they got into it, but they realized like, this is so much. And all of a sudden that energy toward this vision where there was this great vibration, they stopped thinking about that great vision to make it through today. And the wavelength of that vibration becomes about that big. They're just trying to make it. I mean, that's that is what I see happening more often than not.
So you mentioned, an organization where there's lots of energy up at the top, but not at the bottom. Isn't that just a leadership issue, though? I mean, if you go into business, typically you're excited, you've got this idea, I'm going to save the world, or whatever you're going to do, or I'm going to build a better mousetrap, and you get a bunch of people around you. And if their energy doesn't match yours, isn't that really? It's either a hiring issue or a leadership issue, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. But my premise in the book is that's what's required to grow. I mean, it's I'm also a John Maxwell coach, and John's got this thing about the leadership lid. Like you can't perform beyond your leadership ability, whether it's you personally or an organization. So I would say, if you've got a great idea and you don't know how to conduct energy to other people and find people that are energetic toward your cause, you can be successful at some level, but it's probably not the level of your vision or your dream because it's just necessary. Yep. And I see so many parallels to energy distribution in the physical world and the way companies work. And I like to tell this story. If I have, do I have a minute to tell a story?
Uh,
This is a childhood story that I think is relevant to this topic. Is the neighborhood I grew up in, our backyard abutted a power line right away. It was Duke Power. So I had all these towers in the background, that I would go out there and play. Unfortunately, who knows, I'm going to get cancer one day. But after asking many years in a row for an electric train for Christmas, one year I actually got one. And I set it up in the basement, and I would have the best time I would play with it for hours on end. It had all these little, offloading contraptions and things.
Did it have a smokestack that actually smoked?
I never got that one.
Oh, I had that one.
I wanted it.
Keep going.
But my point is, if you think about that, I had the power lines that were bringing this power into our home at a level that was usable. There were multiple outlets around the home. I had a plug for my train. The electrical cord ran into a transformer that would be red hot but after using it. And still,
sparking.
It could spark.
Yep.
But there would be times where the train would just stop, and I would have it on full blast. And I'm like, what in the world? I was 9 years old or something. This is my first physics lesson probably. And I tried, I unplugged it. I was doing all these things. Then I started walking around, I'd walk around the track, and I would notice that there'd just be one track clip that had been separated from overuse. It's the thing had been running too much, and maybe the plywood wasn't completely level or whatever that it was on. But that one clip would stop the entire train.
I remember
So,
searching for that clip over and over.
That is my great metaphor for what we're talking about. If you can't figure out how to keep all that energy conducted as a leader, it'll stop at some point. And that's why I teach leadership, and it's one of the main things that I talk to small business owners about is you have a great idea, but you've got to increase your leadership capacity to grow into it, because right now I can tell you it's just going to be you, and you're going to be the person executing, planning. All of it. And to the extent that you can engage other people and find energy in other people, you have tremendous opportunity. But right now as a leader, and, you think about what happens in company, even large companies, you think about what that grid looks like at a Coca-Cola or a Nike or, whatever these global companies are. And, what a large company would do on leadership development versus what a small business owner might get. And they're guessing. They're looking at TV characters that look like great leaders and acting like them or whatever, And I just firmly believe, leadership is a learned skill that virtually anybody can, I think there's some personality disorders that would probably be impossible, but I would say most people can find the capacity to learn how to lead. And it's probably in the end for company growth, bigger than the original idea is your ability to lead on it.
Well, speaking of leadership, you recently posted that leadership transcends language. What does that mean?
Yeah. Hey, thanks for looking at my post, Jeff.
Somebody's got to. I'm the guy.
Yeah, that comes
from my research.
Yeah, thank you for that, honestly. And you're talking about one of the transformative experiences of my life when I in 2013. I have a good friend here who has a nonprofit. He's from Uganda and started a school over there. And he was at about 30 students, I think. And great concept. Community, it's more than the school. It's community development. It's changing the way of life. And anyway, he invited me over to teach leadership. And I have to confess to anybody watching or listening, whenever I die and they dissect me, the size of my lizard brain is going to be off the, it's probably an anomaly in the world, how uptight and frightful I am about new experiences. So let's just put that as a baseline. But we go all the way across the world, and we're in Boissandeku, which is about 3 hours from Kampala. It's out in this remote village. And we pull up in this bus, and there are hundreds of people cheering for us. It's just And I had no ability to communicate other than my translator. I taught leadership the entire week. It was the most amazing experience, but I had to have a translator. They speak Luganda, and Oliota, I think, is the only thing I can remember, which I think is "Hi, what's your name?" or something like that. But here's the leadership language. The universal leadership language is one of care, connection, and direction towards something that's better for everybody. And that's what I learned without any words in Uganda. These people have children. They have great dreams for them. They want to equip them to do better, to have more, to be successful, to be safe, to be healthy. And, the leaders understand like the human heart level of what they're doing. It's not slogans. It's not, John's got some great leadership aphorism things, they rhyme or, they're catchy. But in the end, the universal language of leadership is care and concern for other people and organizing resources to improve their lives. And I think that applies in Uganda as well as to any corporate culture. And the very first leadership book I read was Leadership is an Art by Max Dupree. And of course, if you don't know the book, Max is a very successful businessman with a huge, company. So, he's a very legitimate business person to be talking about this. But, he said that the first requirement of any leader is to define reality. The last is to say thank you. And in between, it's all about service. It's about service to others, service to customers, service to the people that are working for you. And when you're in an environment where nobody looks like you, the clothing different, the color of the skin is different, the language is completely wild compared to any Western romance language, but you see people doing the same thing about the same work of these kids, maybe going to medical school one day. That's leadership to me. And, it's leading somebody to a better life. And it doesn't have anything to do with saying, the old Jesse Jackson, up with hope, down with dope. We say these things that are rhyming and motivational, but they're really so superficial compared to what leadership is. And that's really about the human heart and wanting things to be better for people. That's how I look at the world.
Gotcha. I like that the only phrase you knew is "What's your name?" The one that I always learn in a language first is "Where's the bathroom?"
That's a whole other conversation for the VIP latrine that we had out there.
Exactly right. You mentioned that you're fearful of new experiences. Why does fear stop so many people from achieving their goals?
I think we're just self-protecting. I talk about in my book, in the first chapter about energy. There's potential energy and kinetic energy, and there's potential energy in everything. And within us, it's dreams, ideas, things that could make the world different. But we have this inability to put that into action. Energy in motion is kinetic energy, and it's things like ego power of looking like a failure. Even though if you talk to anybody that's ever achieved anything, they embrace it. Kobe, any sports stars say, the best thing I do is like golf stars. It's like they don't even remember the last putt. It's like, I just, that one didn't go in. Like, let's get on to the next one. They're afraid of, looking bad, having their self-worth diminished. I think a lot of times, there's real financial kind of, can I make it in life concerns? But I think a lot of those things can be managed if you think about it. But, fear is an irrational response to change. And it's all about this, as I said, the lizard brain. And, Seth Godin had a great book on the lizard brain and what it does to people, but it's paralyzing. And I think that when you can transcend the idea of the fear of what you're going to get, whether you're going to get the sale, whether you're going to get the diploma, whether you're going to get your first customer, whatever it is, and you transcend into a mindset of giving and abundance and having something to offer from a self-worth standpoint, there's something distinctive that you're offering to somebody, and your life becomes an offering and not an expectation. Fear can be beaten every time. every time. I mean, it's like that belief that you're doing something in the world that matters to you and matters to other people. It really takes the, just that cringy, twisted up inside feeling away of like, I'm not begging you for anything. This is here and it's good. And I want to help you. And I would say particularly in sales, I think that, with quotas and goals and, even some industries, daily expectations, I think that the fear of selling, when you have a right-minded salesperson that every day they go out and say, today is a day I could help as many people as I want to help. I believe in this product. The company has a big responsibility to give you a good product, but I believe in this product or service and what it can do for people. And I literally can't wait to tell people if this is available to them. I mean, that's a complete paradigm shift. When you think about it, it's like the expectation versus the opportunity. And I just encourage, anybody that's thinking about a business, I always encourage them to spend a lot of time on that, because in the end, that is the energy source, is like that personal ability to take, this atomic part of yourself and manifest it into something that looks like, I can't believe I got my package delivered same day, or I can't believe how great I looked at that party because, Sarah Blakely took the time. It's like, it's all these, I mean, that to me is like when you're in a selling role, let's just talk about momentum and selling for a second. If you don't have that energy toward how your efforts are going to help people, like, it is complete burnout. I promise you, you are not going to make it. I mean, unless you're the greedy, just fundamentally the greediest person that wants the biggest bonus, and that will burn out eventually. You've got to have that to keep going, because people are going to say no. People are going to, I hate to use a bad term, screw you over. I mean, unscrupulous people, people, in banking, I've seen people put out term sheets to people without ever bringing it to credit. And all of a sudden they've got this quasi commitment from a customer, that they've got a deal, and good well they don't. And it's like, oh, the world isn't fair. Like, these people stink, they're horrible people or whatever. But like, you have to have that energy. Like, there's 10,000 potential business borrowers out here. Like, I'm moving on. I'm not afraid to tell people what I'm about and what I have to offer. So, gosh, I mean, I'm probably not qualified to talk about fear other than my own experiences with it. And I would just say, in my life, the breakthrough that I've had is to stop thinking about myself and thinking about just kind of what I'm doing for other people. I mean, that's the only way I make it. And if I sit here and think all day about, how many, whether I have cash in the bank or not, like, I mean, I'll just shrivel up under my desk here. But, it's like when I can engage with somebody and see the magic of a human conversation and being understood and all that type of thing, that's what I have to think about all the time, is the offering.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins, and I like the way he uses fear as an acronym, which is false evidence appearing real. Fear can be very useful. It's not like fear is necessarily a bad thing. I mean, fear is what stops us from crossing the street in Midtown Manhattan against the light, at rush hour. Fear is what stops us from sticking our hand into a lion's mouth. So sometimes fear is useful, but I took a self-improvement program many, many years ago. And one of the things they shared with us is the way to think about fear is like in the old cartoons where there's a devil on one shoulder and an angel on the other, and they're both whispering at you. Yeah. You simply turn to fear and say, thank you for sharing. Now I'm doing it anyway. I found in my own life, and obviously everybody's different, that, to put yourself in a scary situation and push through it gives you incredible power. I've jumped out of an airplane twice, and it's a pretty scary thing to do. I don't care how brave you are. When they open the door on an airplane and you're looking out from, almost 2 miles up, it's like, holy crap, what am I about to do? And then you have that leap of faith, and a literal leap of faith. And it's like, oh my God, this is the most incredible thing a human can possibly. It's just, you just got to move past it. And
honestly,
as long as it doesn't stop you.
And I think it's so hard, like when you're and I managed multiple sales teams in my banking career. Just to be that level of psychologist with people about what's going to happen if they say no. Compared to so many things in the world, and it just kind of heightens the responsibility of a sales leader to set that as the normal. Like we're in a culture, like I would rather have you come back and tell me that you had 8 no's today and know that you got to the plate than to wonder where you were. And like, what did you do all day? Like, I mean, to me, that's like, that's something a salesperson should wear very proudly. They're in the game. They're believing.
That fear of the word no does keep a lot of salespeople
Right.
from succeeding. And a man who I'm honored to call a friend, and who's a great VP of sales, who's used my services many times at various companies, taught me something which it has stuck with me for many, many years. And it's an acronym, and it's SW, SW, SWN. SW, SW, SWN. Some will, some won't. So what? Next. That is the nature of sales. Nobody closes everybody. As a supposed sales expert, I'm not supposed, I'm a sales expert. I've been doing this a long time. I get paid to teach people how to sell. I don't close everybody. I understand my numbers. I know that it's going to take me X amount of no's to get to a yes. And I love no. I love yes better, but I love no.
Yeah. So you're in the game, and, it's always, I mean, to me, in banking, anyway, it's been more of a not yet. I think you've had the opportunity to prove how you can deliver a proposal to somebody, and you can prove your commitment over the long haul if you just stay in it. I think that, and I just want to say, I know we're running out of time, but I'm so glad you brought up this point about leadership, because I think that sometimes, particularly when we're early on in building a sales force, like it's gone from the owner entrepreneur to 1 or 2 or 3 people that they're being asked to carry the charge. Like I can't sell anymore. I got all the system stuff I'm working on or whatever. And you start building a team, just to recognize how important that cultural bias is toward failing forward. Because there's such a judgmental tendency with people, like, you can't sell like I can. It's like, you're doing it all wrong, and give people the latitude to own and love the product and go do their thing and come back and have that experience of, like, I'm talking to Jeff. He's like, yeah, man, happens every day. I love you. You're perfect for this job. Go do it again. We're going to the
failure way to success, my friend.
We're going to the steakhouse. When you bring that signed paper back for the first time, like, we're going, and you're doing all right. And I think that happens way too infrequently. It's just I think it can be a very hard culture and expectation, and it needs to be very organic and accommodating and graceful for people.
Well, Chip, I could talk to you all day, except we are out of time. So before we go, I know you're a coach, you're a speaker. How can people reach you if they're interested in speaking with you, possibly using your service?
Oh, yeah, please reach out. I have 2 websites. I have www.chiphiggins.com is my speaker workshop website. My company's website is Bizzics, BIZZICS.com. And you'll find, a lot of information about my coaching on there. And the one thing, if I could just, promote or highlight that I'm so excited about, is that, in addition to my book, I built a small language model for my book called Bizzics on Demand. So it's an AI agent for the book that allows anybody to have what they call a contextualized experience with the book. So, and that covers all the chapters in my book, whether you're talking about selling or leading or managing or whatever. It's on my website under, /Bizzics-on demand. But there's a 7-day free trial for it. And I would just say, particularly for salespeople that might want to rethink an approach, rethink, kind of value proposition lines, or just the philosophy of how they're approaching their market. All you have to do is come in and chat. It's a 7-day free trial, and right now it's $14.99 a month, and it's just at your side all the time, 24/7. It never gets tired.
Where do they find that again, Chip? Where do they find that?
It's on my website, Bizzics.com /Bizzics-on-demand. And please connect on LinkedIn. I love meeting people and keeping up with what's going on. I'm just fascinated by the business world and love to see what people are doing and doing well.
Beautiful. Well, Chip, thank you for sharing your brilliance with us so generously. And I'll end as I always do every week. Gang, please remember that sales is a game of making things happen. Get out there and make sales happen. Have a great weekend, everybody. Have a great weekend, Chip. Thanks again.
Thank you, Jeff, very much. Enjoyed it.